On PulsePoint News tonight, startling news from Moscow upends the geopolitical landscape. Washington is stunned by Russia's most recent action, the Baltics are on high alert, and Europe is bracing for the unimaginable. For example, doctors describe former U.S. President Donald Trump as younger than his age in his health report, which causes a media frenzy. His wife, Melania Trump, also discloses a direct line of communication with Vladimir Putin that involves Ukrainian children. At the heart of Russia, protests erupt as citizens direct their ire at the Kremlin's economic war policies. Is Putin's regime showing signs of weakness, or is this the beginning of something much more significant? Keep an eye out, because what is happening now has the potential to alter the balance of power in the world. I'm Gerald, and this is PulsePoint News. The Baltic region is experiencing unprecedented levels of tension. Border crossings in Estonia were abruptly closed after authorities noticed strange Russian military activity close to the small Satsa Butte, a piece of Russian territory that borders Estonia. Authorities responded quickly, rerouting traffic and sealing off roads due to a high-risk situation. There are reports of more patrols and a large Russian presence along the border, which has raised concerns about possible provocations. It has taken action by mandating the departure of more than 800 Russian citizens or the threat of deportation. These are individuals who failed to meet new post-war residency requirements, including a mandatory Latvian language test and security background checks. The Baltic states have become more adamant since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. They have implemented stringent legislation, enhanced NATO coordination, and are currently taking additional measures. Sources close to the Lithuanian National Security Council say that Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are making plans for how to evacuate civilians in case Russia attacks. These plans include setting up emergency shelters, escape routes, and crisis communication systems. Their assertion is unequivocal. This is not a state of panic. It is a state of readiness. Real concern exists that the shadow of the Kremlin may soon descend upon Europe once more. Dissatisfaction is escalating among ordinary citizens in Russia, rather than among political elites. In Vladivostok, hundreds of drivers flooded the streets in protest. Why? Because the Russian government announced a massive increase in vehicle recycling fees, skyrocketing 500 to 800 times higher overnight. This was the last straw for many Russians who depend on reasonably priced Japanese automobiles. The Ministry of Industry claimed it was to combat smuggling and support domestic industry. But locals saw it differently, as yet another desperate attempt to patch the country's war-torn economy. Citizens signed petitions, demanded answers, and accused Moscow of making the people pay for the war. And perhaps they're right. Every new policy, every tax hike, and every restriction seem to serve one purpose: to keep funding a conflict that's bleeding Russia's finances dry. Meanwhile, the United States faces a critical question. Should it send long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine? Former President Donald Trump recently stated that he almost approved the transfer, but wanted clarity on how Ukraine intended to use them. Military analysts say the missiles would be more symbolic than strategic, a bold political message rather than a battlefield game-changer. The Tomahawks can strike targets over 1,600 kilometers away, which means any miscalculation could pull Washington directly into the war. Russian analysts warn that such weapons require intelligence coordination, which Ukraine can't achieve alone, hinting that US and NATO personnel might already be deeply involved behind the scenes. If true, that could blur the line between proxy war and direct confrontation, and the consequences could be catastrophic. And in an astonishing twist, Melania Trump claims she's been in direct contact with Vladimir Putin over the fate of Ukrainian children taken to Russia. She says she's received written responses from the Kremlin, and that 8 children have already been reunited with their families thanks to this back channel. Her statement suggests ongoing dialogue between Washington and Moscow. not through official diplomacy, but through an unexpected humanitarian path. According to Yale University, over 35,000 Ukrainian minors may have been relocated or adopted inside Russia since the war began. Kyiv officially confirms about 19,000 cases of forced displacement. If Melania's initiative proves authentic, it could become one of the few examples of quiet diplomacy succeeding where politics failed. While Melania's revelation stirred headlines, her husband made his own in the doctor's office. After a full medical examination, physicians concluded that Donald Trump's cardiac age is 14 years younger than his actual age. Doctors praised his excellent cardiovascular, neurological, and respiratory performance, saying the former president is in exceptional condition. Trump reportedly joked that he aced every question on his cognitive test, a statement that went viral and reignited the debate about presidential fitness. White House insiders confirm he follows a strict daily routine with light exercise, a controlled diet, and minimal sleep, all to maintain stamina ahead of what many believe will be another presidential run. In an America increasingly divided by age, ideology, and fatigue, Trump's team is framing his vitality as a symbol of energy and leadership in a tired world. His opponents dismiss it as political theater, but his supporters see it as proof that the man who once dominated the stage is ready to reclaim it again. As Moscow indicates adaptability and Trump displays strength, the world is in a state of delicate balance. The Baltics prepare for evacuation. Europe is getting ready for another winter of turmoil. Economic decline and unrest are prevalent in Russia. America, torn between foreign crises and election fever, is choosing between re-engaging with Putin and rearming Ukraine. The following headline relates to the next, and together they paint a portrait of a planet on edge, where diplomacy, power, and ego intertwine like live wires waiting to spark. So, what's really happening behind the scenes? Did Putin just open a new diplomatic door through Melania Trump? Will Washington dare to cross Russia's red line with long-range missiles? And is the Baltic readiness a sign of defense or a silent countdown to escalation? The answers are coming. But the one truth we already know is this: the world is changing faster than ever, and every move made today will echo across generations. At PulsePoint News, we cut through the noise, bringing you the pulse of world events before they become tomorrow's headlines. If you value real analysis, verified sources, and stories that matter, subscribe now and stay connected to the global heartbeat that drives our future. This is PulsePoint News, where truth meets perspective. See you next time.